Well, think hard about it. Maybe we'll need it. Hey, quit licking your chops and let's get out of here.
Well, anyway, Japan today, they say, is the most important industrialized country in the world.
Bud Spencer built his career on precision, timing, and a larger-than-life presence that dominated every frame. Yet during the height of his fame, there was one co-star who disrupted that balance completely. What started as a simple working relationship spiraled into frustration, conflict, and a level of dislike Bud rarely expressed publicly. Fans saw the chemistry on screen, but they had no idea what was brewing behind it. And the story of how this tension exploded reveals a side of Bud few ever witnessed. The making of an unlikely icon. Long before the world knew him as Bud Spencer, he was Carlo Pedersoli, a kid from Naples, born on October 31, 1929. His roots were grounded in family and hard work. His mother, Rosa, came from Brescia, while his father, Alessandro, ran a furniture manufacturing business. But from early on, it was clear Carlo had his own path. The moment he stepped into the water as a young boy, something clicked. By 1936, just a year into school, he had already joined a swimming club, beginning a lifelong connection to the pool. Then came 1940, and everything changed. With his younger sister, Vera, now part of the family, they were forced to leave Naples after a devastating bombardment destroyed the factory built by his ancestors. They relocated to Rome, a place considered safer because of its proximity to the Vatican. For Carlo, the move became an opportunity. He excelled in school, graduating with honors in 1946, already showing signs of the discipline that would define his life. But academics were only part of the story. On the rugby field, he helped lead his school team to a national championship. In the water, he was something else entirely. At just 15, he was already beating older, more experienced swimmers. That same year, he entered the Sapienza University of Rome to study chemistry, becoming one of the youngest students in the country. Still, the post-war years weren't easy. Like many families at the time, the Pedersolis had to adapt. They moved again, this time across the Atlantic to Brazil. Carlo embraced the change. He learned Portuguese, worked on an assembly line in Rio de Janeiro, and fell in love with Brazilian music, which stayed with him for life. By 1948, he was back in Italy, ready to refocus. He switched from chemistry to law, partly because it gave him more freedom to train. And train he did. While continuing to dominate in swimming, he also stepped into the boxing ring as a heavyweight, and didn't lose a single fight. But it was in the pool where he truly made history. In 1949, he became Italy's freestyle champion. Then, in 1950, he did something no Italian had ever done before. He swam the 100-meter freestyle in under a minute, clocking 59.5 seconds. It was a breakthrough moment, one that cemented his place among the country's elite athletes. By the time he retired in 1957, he had collected multiple national titles and built a reputation as one of Italy's finest swimmers. His dominance extended beyond individual events. As part of the Italian national water polo team, he competed alongside a squad that stood among the best in the world, carrying the legacy of Olympic success into international competition. Around this time, another door quietly opened. Carlo's athletic fame and commanding presence caught the attention of filmmakers. He landed a small role in the 1949 film Quel fantasma di mio marito, followed by a part in the 1951 epic Quo Vadis, where he appeared as a Praetorian guard. It was a glimpse into a future he hadn't fully stepped into yet. Through the 1950s, though, his focus remained on sport. He competed at the European Championships in Vienna, earned medals at the Mediterranean Games, and represented Italy at the Olympic Games. First in Helsinki in 1952, then again in Melbourne in 1956. While he never reached the podium, his performances placed him among the top swimmers in the world. At 27, he made a decision that surprised many. He walked away from competitive swimming. No farewell tour, no slow exit, just a clean break. But it wasn't the end of his journey. If anything, it was the start of something deeper. He traveled to Caracas, not for comfort, but for clarity. Gone were the cheers, the recognition, the status. In their place was hard labor. He worked as a foreman on the construction of the Pan American Highway, testing himself in a completely different way. It was during this time that he faced a personal question head-on. Who was he without the spotlight? The work was tough, and the distance weighed on him. He missed Italy, his family, and especially a young woman named Maria. There were moments when he wanted to give up and go back, but he pushed through. Eventually, he found work with Alfa Romeo in Caracas, before finally returning to Rome in 1959. That same year, he stepped back onto a film set, landing a role in Hannibal. It was a small but meaningful step back into the world of cinema. Interestingly, another actor was also part of that film, Terence Hill. The two shared the same project, but never crossed paths. Their scenes were filmed separately, their lives moving in completely different directions. At that point, they were just two men on parallel tracks. It would take nearly a decade before those paths finally collided, and when they did, everything would change. The day Bud met Terence. By February 25, 1960, Carlo Pedersoli was ready to slow things down and build something steady. He married Maria Amato, a woman who would become central to both his personal life and his future in unexpected ways. From that point, life moved quickly. Within a year, their son Giuseppe was born, and not long after, their daughter Cristiana joined the family. While things were expanding at home, Carlo kept a low profile professionally. Between 1960 and 1964, he worked behind the scenes at RCA Italiana, composing music across a wide range of styles, from traditional Neapolitan sounds to mainstream Italian hits. It was steady work, creative work, but eventually it wasn't enough. By 1964, he reached a breaking point. He walked away, tearing up his contract and choosing independence over stability. Not to leave creativity behind, but to take control of it. He launched his own production company and shifted toward making documentaries for Italian television. Around that same time, the family suffered a loss. Maria's father, Giuseppe Amato, passed away. He had been a major figure in the film industry, the kind of person who could open doors instantly. But Carlo didn't rush through those doors. Acting still wasn't part of the plan. That changed in 1967, when director Giuseppe Colizzi came calling. He was preparing a spaghetti western titled God Forgives, I Don't, and needed someone with presence, someone physically commanding. Carlo, standing tall with a powerful build, was exactly what he had in mind. Even then, Carlo hesitated. He didn't see himself as an actor, and he wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea. To him, it felt like a one-time experiment. He even worried about how it might look to people who knew him. So he made a few adjustments. He grew out a thick beard to mask his appearance and adopted a stage name that would blend into the Western genre. Drawing from what he liked, he combined Budweiser with the name of Spencer Tracy. Just like that, Bud Spencer was born. Right as filming was about to begin, production hit a major snag. One of the lead actors got injured, forcing the team to scramble for a replacement at the last minute. With barely a day to spare, they brought in a young actor named Mario Girotti. He stepped onto the set to play a character called Cat Stevens, and almost immediately, he made a change of his own, taking on the name Terence Hill. Their first meeting wasn't dramatic. There was no build-up, no sense of history being made, just a quick introduction before they were thrown straight into work. At that point, Terence Hill had more acting experience, while Bud Spencer was still finding his footing. But something clicked early. What neither of them realized in that moment was how far back their connection actually went. Years earlier, a young Terence had quietly admired Carlo from a distance, watching him train in the pool as a rising swimming star. They never spoke back then, but the impression stuck. By the time they officially crossed paths on set, both had already been moving through the same world. Cinecittà Studios had seen them both pass through its gates more than once, each chasing different opportunities. Still, their paths never fully aligned, until now. On set, the atmosphere was tense because of the last-minute casting changes, but Bud remained calm, taking everything in stride. Then came this young actor with sharp blue eyes and an easy smile, introducing himself with confidence and respect. They sat down, ran through scenes, and quickly found a rhythm. Their approaches couldn't have been more different. Terence was precise, disciplined, the kind of actor who studied every detail late into the night. Bud leaned on instinct, drawing from his athletic background and natural timing, often keeping things relaxed and grounded. But beneath those differences was a shared mindset. No ego, no competition, just mutual respect. Giuseppe Colizzi saw it immediately. He recognized that contrast as something valuable, something that could elevate the story. Instead of smoothing out their differences, he leaned into them. That decision made all the difference. What started as a last-minute casting fix turned into something far bigger. The chemistry felt real because it was real. Off-screen, that same respect turned into a genuine friendship, one that would last for decades. And on-screen, it became the foundation of a partnership that audiences would come to recognize instantly. Two completely different personalities, moving in sync, creating something that felt effortless. It didn't come from planning. It came from timing, trust, and a bit of luck, meeting at exactly the right moment, when everything was finally ready to fall into place. When chemistry became cinematic magic. By the late 1960s, Bud Spencer was already thinking about walking away. From his perspective, the acting thing just wasn't clicking. He didn't speak much English, horseback riding wasn't exactly his strength, and the wave of spaghetti westerns that had once dominated the screen was starting to fade. To him, it felt like the end of the road. But what he didn't see coming was how strongly audiences had already connected with him, especially when he was paired with Terence Hill. Together, they had something that couldn't be manufactured. Their chemistry felt natural, effortless, and people immediately locked into it. Director Giuseppe Colizzi saw that spark early and leaned into it, bringing them back for two more films, Ace High and Boot Hill. Both turned out to be major successes, and during that time, their relationship shifted. What started as a professional partnership quietly grew into a real friendship. Bud, in particular, developed a deep respect for Terence, not just for his talent, but for his attitude and work ethic. Even so, Bud explored projects on his own, taking roles in films like Beyond the Law and The Five-Man Army. They held their ground, but they didn't quite hit the same level. It became clear that something special happened when the two of them shared the screen. Then came 1970, and everything changed. A cinematographer turned director named Enzo Barboni, working under the name E.B. Klucher, had a different vision for the Western. He wanted to strip away the usual violence and replace it with humor, exaggerated action, and pure entertainment. It wasn't the kind of idea studios were lining up for. Most producers passed, saying it didn't have enough traditional action, but Italo Zingarelli saw something others didn't. He backed the project, and that decision changed everything. The film was They Call Me Trinity. From the moment Bud Spencer and Terence Hill stepped into those roles, it felt like everything finally clicked into place. The energy on set reflected that. Instead of a rigid production, it became something loose and collaborative. Barboni encouraged improvisation, letting the actors shape the tone in real time. They filmed in the open landscapes of central Italy, and the atmosphere felt more like a gathering than a job. Long meals, football games between takes, and a crew fully locked into what they were creating. When the film hit theaters, the response was immediate and overwhelming. It didn't just perform well, it exploded. It became a cultural phenomenon, breaking records and reaching audiences far beyond Italy. At one point, it even surpassed La Dolce Vita at the box office, a full-circle moment considering that film had been produced by Bud's late father-in-law, Giuseppe Amato. The demand was intense, cinemas were packed, and fans kept coming back, watching the film multiple times. It wasn't just entertainment, it was an experience people wanted to relive. That success kicked off a defining era. Throughout the 1970s, Bud Spencer and Terence Hill became one of the most recognizable duos in film, delivering hit after hit. The sequel, Trinity Is Still My Name, pushed things even further, outperforming the original and cementing their global appeal. They reunited with Giuseppe Colizzi for All the Way Boys, even taking a pay cut to work with him again, a move that said a lot about their loyalty. Filming in Colombia, the experience left a mark on Bud, especially when it came to aviation. That project sparked a passion for flying that stayed with him long after. By 1973, Bud expanded his range, creating and starring in The Knockout Cop, introducing the character Inspector Rizzo, also known as Piedon. The role connected instantly with audiences, leading to multiple sequels and proving he could carry major projects on his own. Over the course of the decade, he appeared in more than 20 films, building a solo career that ran right alongside his work with Terence. Still, the partnership remained the heart of it all. In 1977, the two reunited again with Enzo Barboni for Crime Busters, this time filming in Miami. The result was another international hit, reinforcing what audiences already knew. Together, they were something special. By the end of the decade, their reach wasn't just big, it was global. Fans from Europe to the Americas, from Australia all the way to South Africa, were locked in. Their movies didn't even need fancy dialogue to win people over.
We didn't put the squeeze on no merchants. We ain't robbed nobody. We sure as hell didn't kill a guy called aforementioned.
The physical comedy, the timing, the personality, that was the real language. So when the 1980s rolled in, Bud Spencer and Terence Hill were still running like a well-oiled machine. The momentum they built in the 70s didn't slow down for a second. They kept dropping crowd pleasers, Who Finds a Friend, Finds a Treasure, Go For It, movies packed with that same unbeatable mix of humor, action, and effortless chemistry that fans just couldn't get enough of. Then, in 1984, they decided to switch things up. Double Trouble came out of nowhere with a fresh twist. Both actors pulling double duty. On one side, they played wealthy Brazilian brothers. On the other, they stepped into the roles of their rough-and-tumble look-alikes. It was chaotic, playful, and leaned fully into the absurdity that fans had come to love. But by 1985, the journey they had shared for over a decade reached its natural conclusion. Miami Super Cops became their final film together in that original run. After 16 years of working side by side, they chose to go their separate ways creatively. It marked the end of an era that had dominated screens across the world. In Germany alone, their films pulled in over 100 million cinema admissions, a number that still stands as a rare achievement. From there, Bud Spencer began exploring new directions. In 1986, he stepped into a more whimsical role with Super Fantagenio, a fantasy comedy that allowed him to show a different side. It also became a personal project, with his daughter Diamante appearing alongside him, blending his family life with his work. By 1988, he transitioned to television with Big Man, a series where he didn't just act, but also contributed behind the scenes as a writer. The experience carried emotional weight, as his longtime collaborator Steno passed away during production, casting a shadow over the project. He returned to film in 1990, reconnecting with Enzo Barboni for Speaking with the Devil. Once again, it became a family collaboration, with Diamante stepping into the role of his on-screen daughter. Television continued to be a strong lane for him. Between 1991 and 1992, he found success with Extra Large, playing a detective in Florida. This time, his son Giuseppe played a major role behind the scenes, helping shape the series through writing and production. Then came 1994, a moment fans had been waiting for. Bud convinced Terence Hill to reunite for one more film, Botte di Natale. It wasn't just a reunion, it was a generational project. Terence directed, his son contributed to the script, and Bud's son produced. Everything was in place for something special. But despite the effort and the nostalgia, the film didn't land the way they had hoped. It didn't spark the comeback many fans had imagined. Still, Bud kept moving. He returned to television with We Are Angels, stepping into the role of a small-time crook hiding out in a monastery, blending comedy with a touch of redemption. In a surprising twist, he even lent his voice to the show's Italian theme song alongside Philip Michael Thomas. As the years passed, he began easing into lighter roles. In Fuochi d'Artificio, he appeared as a blind singer, showing a quieter, more reflective side of his acting. Then, in 2001, he returned to Italian television with Father Hope, another project shaped alongside his son Giuseppe. The pilot drew strong viewership, but despite the promising start, the full series never materialized. Behind the scenes, life was becoming more challenging. Health issues began to catch up with him. He underwent hip replacement surgery and later faced serious eye problems. At one point, his vision deteriorated significantly because he delayed treatment. Fortunately, surgery helped restore it, allowing him to continue working. In 2003, at 74, he took on a role that meant more to him than any before. In Cantando Dietro ai Paraventi, directed by Ermanno Olmi, he played an aging pirate captain. For the first time, he felt he was truly acting, not just playing a version of himself, but fully stepping into a character with depth. By 2007, he began work on what would become his final feature film, Mord ist mein Geschäft, Liebling, a German production shot in Berlin. He played an aging mafia boss, a role that quietly mirrored his own stage in life. Production delays pushed the release to 2009, giving him time to appear in one more project, Pane e Olio, a short, reflective piece where he appeared in flashbacks as a father figure. In 2009, he stepped back into television once more with I Deliti del Cuoco. This time, he played a retired inspector who trades his badge for a kitchen, opening a restaurant on the island of Ischia. Filming took place on location, with Alessandro Capone directing and his son Giuseppe producing. The series premiered in 2010 offering fans one more chance to see him in a leading role. Just days before that premiere, something special happened. On May 7, 2010, Bud Spencer and Terence Hill stood side by side once again in Rome, receiving the David di Donatello for Lifetime Achievement. It was a rare public reunion, and for many, it felt like a full-circle moment. Of course, it sparked hope. Fans began to wonder if one last film might be on the way. There were even whispers of a new project inspired by classic dual-character stories. But Bud was honest about where he stood. He knew the expectations that came with their name, and he wasn't interested in returning unless he could truly deliver. At that stage in his life, he chose to leave things as they were, on a high note, with nothing left to prove. The final chapter fans never expected. On May 27, 2010, Bud Spencer stepped into a new chapter of his life, releasing his autobiography, Altrimenti mi arrabbio. The title wasn't random. It was a clear nod to one of his most beloved films, Watch Out, We're Mad, instantly recognizable to longtime fans. The book first landed in Italy, but it didn't stay there for long. Word spread quickly, and soon the rest of Europe wanted in. By November that same year, the book reached Hungary, keeping its original title in translation. The launch was a full-on celebration, complete with a major event organized by the publisher. Even though Bud couldn't attend in person, he made sure to show up in his own way, sending a special video message to connect with fans who had supported him for decades. Then came Germany in April 2011, where the book was released under a more straightforward title, Mein Leben, Meine Filme. What followed was something nobody could ignore. Bud didn't just drop a book, he went all in. He traveled across the country, showing up for fans face-to-face, holding 11 signing sessions and appearing on multiple TV talk shows. Everywhere he went, the response was overwhelming. Crowds stretched into the thousands, with people lining up for hours just to get a moment with him. The numbers backed it up. The first batch of copies sold out almost instantly. Online charts placed him at #1, and major bestseller lists followed suit. His name was everywhere again, not just as a film legend, but as a cultural icon still commanding attention decades later. At one point, the hype even spilled into something unexpected. In the town of Schwäbisch Gmünd, locals voted online to name a new tunnel after him, and he won by a landslide. Officials eventually stepped in and blocked it, but the fans still got their win. Not long after, the town named its swimming pool in his honor instead. The success of the first book naturally opened the door for more. In 2012, Bud released a second installment, In 80 Jahren um die Welt, continuing his story with the same charm and honesty. Once again, it brought him back on the road, reconnecting with fans and keeping that momentum alive. While it didn't explode quite like the first, it still held its own and proved that people were invested in his story beyond the screen. That same wave carried into a massive documentary release in 2013, a deep dive into his life and career that gave fans even more to hold on to. By then, his connection with audiences, especially in Germany, had only grown stronger, with repeated visits and packed appearances becoming the norm. Then came October 2014, a milestone moment. Bud turned 85 and marked it by releasing his third book, Ich esse, also bin ich. The title said it all. It leaned into his personality, mixing humor, food, and reflection, as he playfully explored his love for cooking while debating ideas with famous thinkers. It was personal, funny, and exactly what fans expected from him. Plans were made for another tour, but his health forced him to step back at the last minute. Still, he wasn't done just yet. In June 2015, he made one final return to Berlin, giving fans a last chance to see him in person during 2 special signing events. Even in his 80s, Bud kept creating. He worked on another book and finally fulfilled a lifelong dream, releasing his own music. In early 2016, he dropped a collection of Neapolitan songs, written and performed by him, followed by a vinyl release that included a limited number of signed copies. For fans, it was something special, a piece of him they could hold on to. Then came June 27, 2016. The news hit hard. Bud Spencer had passed away peacefully in Rome, surrounded by his family. The announcement came through his official page, describing it as his final journey. His son later shared a detail that stayed with people. His last words were simple and heartfelt. A quiet, "Thank you." The reaction was immediate. Matteo Renzi paid tribute, as did Russell Crowe, who had openly admired him. Across Europe, television networks cleared their schedules to air his films, turning the moment into a widespread tribute. For many, especially those who grew up watching him, it felt like saying goodbye to more than just an actor. It was the end of an era, but the legacy he left behind, those unforgettable roles, that humor, that presence, continues to live on, carried by the same audiences who never stopped showing up for him. Bud Spencer hated this one co-star more than anyone else. It's the early 1970s, and Bud Spencer and Terence Hill have officially become the duo everybody's talking about. The momentum came off the massive success of They Call Me Trinity, where they tapped into a formula that just worked: slapstick humor, Western grit, and over-the-top action that didn't take itself too seriously. Audiences, especially across Europe, couldn't get enough of it. Now picture them on set, filming the sequel. Trinity is still my name. The crew is setting up one of those signature fight scenes, the kind packed with exaggerated hits, chaotic movement, and those unmistakable cartoon-like sound effects. It's the type of scene fans came for. This particular moment centers on a staged brawl between Bambino and Trinity. On the surface, it's all jokes and goofy punches, but behind that comedy is serious precision. Bud Spencer wasn't just playing the strongman, he had real athletic credentials, with a background in competitive swimming, boxing, and physical training that gave his movements weight and control. The plan sounded simple. One big punch from Bud's character, timed just right, would send Terence Hill flying dramatically across the saloon. Clean, funny, effective. But when the cameras rolled, things didn't go exactly as planned. Bud misjudged the distance, just slightly, but enough. The punch landed harder than intended. Terence didn't just act like he'd been hit. He actually went flying, crashing straight into chairs and furniture, sending props everywhere, and turning the set into pure chaos. For a split second, everything stopped. The crew rushed in, expecting the worst. But Terence Hill? He was laughing. Not just brushing it off, he was genuinely cracking up. To him, the moment wasn't a mistake. It was comedy gold. That reaction changed everything. Instead of reshooting the scene, the director decided to keep that exact take in the film. And that could have just been a funny accident, but it ended up becoming something more. Bud Spencer, known for holding himself to a high standard, wasn't about to let something like that slide. He took it personally, going back to refine his timing and sharpen his control during stunt work. What came out of that was a deeper rhythm between the two actors. They began to read each other effortlessly, anticipating movements without needing to say a word. That unspoken connection became the foundation of their style. From that point on, their fight scenes evolved into something special. Bud played the unstoppable force, heavy, grounded, and powerful. while Terrence moved like the perfect counterbalance, quick, agile, and always just out of reach. Together, they created sequences that felt both chaotic and perfectly synchronized at the same time. What audiences were really seeing wasn't just choreography. It was chemistry built on trust, timing, and a shared sense of humor. That mix of physical comedy, absurdity, and genuine camaraderie is what turned their performances into something timeless and ultimately cemented their legacy as one of cinema's most iconic duos.